Today, we're diving into a conversation that goes way beyond passports and plane tickets. Our guest is my dear friend, Andrea Leblang, founder of Elite Travel Arrangements, a woman who's planned everything from romantic European escapes to million-dollar journeys for the world's most discerning travelers. But her own story is just as meaningful as the one she designs. Andrea has lived in more than 60 countries, raising her daughter as an American expat in the Netherlands and crafting a life rooted in cultural curiosity. She shares how travel has made her more mindful, grounded, and connected to the world around her, and how even the most luxurious adventures can become deeply human and transformative. This episode explores the art of mindful luxury, what it means to see the world with openness, and how sometimes the most extraordinary journeys lead us home to ourselves. Okay, welcome to the show, the woman, the wonder, the legend, Andrea Leblang.
Oh my God.
Here you If you can't tell, I have a deep love of Andrea. She is one of my dearest friends and most inspirational women in the world. And I get around, and I'm so happy to have you here all the way from the Netherlands.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It's dark, it's cold, but I am shining for you.
Oh. Now, Andrea's from the US. She's from Georgia, but it was 10 years ago that you left on a big around the world trip with your husband. Take me back to 2015 when you guys were deciding to do that.
Oh, I've been thinking about it a lot lately since it's been kind of our decade since we've done this. But at the time, my husband, Brian, was working remotely, and this was long before, COVID and everyone sort of moved to remote capable careers. So it was exciting and a big deal. And I was in a corporate job where I was just working for my passion, which was travel and exploring and adventure. That's actually what my husband and I connected on. And so I really wanted to change my situation. I was stuck in not a 9 to 5, like a 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Position where I was doing a lot of networking. I had to be on construction sites early. And it was a good position. I was making money that I was saving for hopefully doing something different with my life. And I decided to take a big leap in 2015. We sold and donated everything. We rented out our condo in Atlanta. We actually had a very small wedding ceremony with just our parents and siblings in Barcelona. It was the first time everyone got to meet, even though Brian and I had been together for like 7 years at this point. A little unconventional. So anyways, everyone met in Barcelona, and then we set off. We decided that I hadn't done a lot of traveling growing up. I didn't have the opportunity. My family was always encouraging me to explore, but we weren't in a position to do that when I was younger. So it wasn't until I studied abroad in college that I just really noticed. I was in Germany. Just the details, everything was different. The strawberries tasted different. They had this thing called quark that was in all their ice cream and their cheesecake, and it tasted amazing. And I really had an addiction to seeing everything. And I had a list of places I wanted to go and cultures and foods that I wanted to experience. And Brian was aligned with me on this. And we thought, okay, we don't have kids. We're in our, late 20s, early 30s. It's time to go around and do this while we can. So we lived in a different country every month for a period of about 3 years. For me, I was building a business at the same time. I started a blog at first, and as well as a travel agency. I was a one-woman show. The blog was intended to inspire people, but also, get leads of people who want me to plan their travel, because I'm actually experiencing these places, going to these hotels, and trying to find the best fit for people that I would like to help adventure the way I do. So I feel like I'm rambling, but that's where we ended up on this great adventure that was about 3 years until Delilah came along and sort of changed things a little bit.
When you guys left, financially, did you guys have a budget in mind? And so also, you said you were starting a new business, but Brian had some income coming in. So how did you guys manage that?
That's a good question. And I want to make this very clear, because a lot of people hear our story and they only hear half of it. And they're like, they're young. They're like, I'm just going to not even work or have a career. I am going to just travel the world and, start an Instagram account, maybe be an influencer and figure this out. I don't really think, maybe to others what I did was daring. I don't really think it was too daring, to be honest. I was really excited to go and explore, but I didn't quit my job with no revenue streams to do this. We had security in Brian's job. He was making good money at the time. He was working with some partners and a company also in the travel field that he had started in university. And it actually is also why this was really difficult for him. I was building this new company starting from scratch, and I had all of this energy and excitement. I didn't have a lot of clients. I didn't have a lot of money coming in. It was just all passion. And, we're living on the other side of the world. We're in Japan, and I can work anytime I want to. And most of my work is going and finding exciting, exceptional experiences. But his job was managing a team of 50 based in Atlanta. And so he was working in the night. He was a total vampire. And there was a time when we sat down in Cambodia. This was year 3. I don't know I'm pregnant yet, but I am. And we're having dinner, and he tells me, hey, I don't know how this is, going to sit with you, but I really think we should slow down. I'm feeling stressed out all the time. I'm not awake during the day. I'm working all night. We're moving. I'm stubbing my toe constantly. I don't know where the lights are. It's really stressful, and I don't think we should do this anymore. And I was like, I don't know what that means for us. I mean, this is the man I've been with this point for years. I was like, because this is my life. This is what I want to do forever. And he handled it well. He was like, how about if we just, slow down a little at first? Maybe we'll stay somewhere for 3 months. And then maybe after a year, we'll stay somewhere for 6 months and kind of stretch it out and try to find a place that is a good fit for us. So we had spreadsheets, countries, tax implications, healthcare, how much it is to invest in a property. Can we get residency there? And we really narrowed it down, and we lived in a few places, 3 actually, for longer periods that we were evaluating as our final destination. So we really had to kind of come together and compromise at a point. And he was the one who compromised the most because he was really finished with the whole backpack around. We still love to travel, but it's crazy to me looking back that now we're here. We have a home in the Netherlands, in Den Haag, The Hague actually, with a daughter who is bilingual, bikes to school every day by herself. And for the first time, actually, in these past 2 years, I felt happy being settled. I still like to travel. I still like to experience in new places, but honestly, I've seen so much. I'm at a point where I really revel in going to places I've been before and showing my daughter my favorite little spots. So, it's like 10 years, everything has changed, and I found a lot of peace and stability in a normal routine.
I'm laughing at the fact that while you're having this conversation about slowing down, you're about to go on your greatest adventure yet, which is parenthood. And little did you know.
Yeah, it's true. And everybody told me, well, I got really scared when I was pregnant. I wasn't ready for it. I was like, what are we going to do? I don't want to move back to America and live in the suburbs and get a minivan. I was really upset. I had this idea in my head of what it had to look like. And Brian was like, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll figure it out as it comes. And at first, actually, I think this is just my own theory, but, women talk about nesting during their pregnancy, how it's really important to have this space, this room you're creating for your little one. And I didn't have that at all. But in this time in my life, I think that my comfort was really set in being in flux, in moving. So I didn't want to settle. I didn't want to decorate a baby's room. I wanted to keep traveling. I wanted to travel more. I loved traveling while I was pregnant. I spent my last trimester living in Tangier, Morocco, doing, prenatal yoga and walking down the Medina every day. I actually wanted to stay there. I was trying to convince Brian that we should live in Morocco. And he was like, I really want you to make this decision after you have birth, because I really think that there's a lot going on in here that's, confusing your emotions a bit. So, but I did. But, once we got this home and it was ours, and I showed Deli her room, I had some delayed nesting. So it did happen to me. It just happened at 4 years old instead of infancy.
This is such a, I guess, opposite of what most, like you even pointed out, what most women would want to do. This wanting to travel more while you're pregnant. Where do you think that came from?
I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze myself, but I've always been very curious about my own roots and about what's out there. And I've always felt very comfortable exploring solo travel when I was younger, many different ways. I feel very at home when I'm put in a position that's outside of my comfort zone. I think that I thrive off of that energy. So for me, it also, the idea of changing everything that I'd worked towards, that I loved. I left to start this adventure to build a business that was around my passion instead of working in something I was miserable just to feed it for these little breaks, these little holiday weeks. So I think that for me, it was that love for being uncomfortable and pushing yourself that made me feel like I was thriving. And whenever I was being still and things started to get too comfortable, I would get antsy. Even in new places, we would return back to spots that we loved, like Rovinj, Croatia. It's this beautiful little spot in the Istrian Peninsula. And I loved it so much, I was like, I think I could live here. But 3 months in, I even was going crazy there. I was out of things to do. We have to go somewhere else. We have to see something new. So, if I could go way back and try to figure out why I'm like that. But I think that the main point is I'm really happy and excited when I'm learning new things, when I'm pushed into a situation where you have to kind of be on guard. You have to think about what you're doing. It's almost meditative in certain ways. For example, when you're in Japan, you don't cross the street if there's not a signal that you can cross. If you step 1 foot into the crosswalk, everybody's going to look at you like you're crazy. And I think it's kind of interesting to go somewhere where you can't just be a brazen American and go and just yell and do everything your way and assume that the world's going to bend around you. Travel helps you really be the type of person where you are being mindful of your surroundings, of what everyone else is doing, how they're behaving, and being respectful of those situations. I really enjoy that. It's a way of learning. It makes me excited. I think that it is good for people, good for children. I think that when they travel at a young age, they're not going to remember what they're doing, of course, but they're going to learn a lot. They're going to learn to be intuitive. They're going to learn to have empathy. They're going to learn to understand other people's differences so much better when you're seeing this variety, when you're seeing these other ways of thinking about things. It's really eye-opening, and it makes you realize what a box you live in if you never leave your home.
So well said.
I hope that made sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are always wanting to seek more, what is it about the Netherlands that allowed you to feel comfort in the routine? Do you think there's anything in particular? Is it the place? Is it the people? Is it a combination and time of life?
I think it's a mixture. I'll start quickly with time of life, in that I really think that I'm 41, and I think that when you get to a certain age, while I still crave the excitement, and I just got back from Ibiza last week, and I love being able to fly off and do these different things, the routine is a lot more important to me now. It's kind of like this manic thing where you have your routine for too long and you start getting itchy feet and you got to go somewhere. And then you go somewhere and you're crazy, and then you're like, I need my routine, but it's this balance, and it ebbs and it flows, and I love it. I will say that also having a child. So if you'd asked me 5, 6 years ago, I would have said having a child changes nothing. You can do everything the same way, because I was still traveling the world with Deli. She's lived in 30 different countries. She was speaking French when we moved here and had this culture shock of, not knowing this language. And now she's basically Dutch. I think that I really wanted to give her roots somewhere. I'll always be an expat, and I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with this way of life. I've chosen it. She doesn't get to choose it. So I wanted her to feel connected with a culture. And that was a really big point in our decision-making process. We had a few different cities where we would be able to gain residency and could live. But once I had her, I stopped thinking about what I wanted to do, and I started looking at the children. And I felt like I was picking a culture for my daughter, because I knew I wasn't going to send her to an international school. I want her to not connect with kids who are coming and going. The international schools in Europe are usually people who are stationed in an area for a few years and then they're gone. I wanted her to feel rooted in a country. So I started looking at the kids all over the world. And every time we came to the Netherlands, which was always in the summer, side note, you should come in the winter before you decide to move here. But we came in the summer, and the kids were amazing. The Dutch kids were running and playing. They weren't on their phones. They're biking everywhere. It's really safe here. It's really safe. My daughter's 8. In the next year, she's going to be biking to school all by herself with her friends. 9 or 10 is about when that starts happening. And you see all the kids go along together, and you start thinking about how much that changes a person when you can give them that level of independence. When I can tell my 8-year-old to go to the grocery store by herself, which is just a few blocks away, you turn into a different person. I'm not having to inject any fear in her or worry or concern. It's all very, it feels like we live in a bubble sometimes, to be honest, when I'm biking. When it's raining, you wake up a bit and you're like, this is a little bit harsh. I'm outside of my comfort zone, but I also like that. And I also think that's why the Dutch people, but I will say it's the women who sold me on these countries. I really, really look up to Dutch women. I think they're strong. I think they're independent. They don't need to be taken care of. As a matter of fact, it is offensive to them. And they are tough as shit. And I really think that is from dealing with biking in the sleet and the hail on a regular basis. They don't get sick. They just pull their hair up and it's all wet and they don't have their raincoats on. And they're really strong. And I was like, that's what I want my daughter to be. She's going to be tough. And she is. They have a saying here that they teach the kids from a young age. They want them to be lekker eigenwijs. And if you translate that literally into English, it means stubborn. They are telling children to be stubborn. And at first I was taken aback. And why is my daughter walking around singing "I am so stubborn" after school? I'm really confused. But I spoke with some of the moms, and you know what? In Dutch, it doesn't translate the same way. Stubborn isn't being narrow-minded and without the ability to take in someone else's point of view. What it literally translates to Dutch is being decisive, knowing your mind, knowing what you want, and knowing what's good for you, and not letting other people sway you. And that is what these kids are, and that is what they turn into as adults, are these very capable, independent people who cannot be pressured. They are not going to be, because they are eigenwijs. They know their mind, and they are going to stick with their belief system that they know is right for them. And I love that.
Wow. That is giving me so much energy. I love everything about it. And I hate to bring back to probably, it's almost like the most boring part, but I feel like a lot of people are going to question. You mentioned the kids aren't on their phones. Why is that? And here in America, we all know, that's the biggest battle. And I think Colette and I realize that is going to be the biggest battle that we have to fight during our kids' lives, is building a community, which we're already starting to see the momentum of kids who aren't on their phones. She's going to push us and he's going to push us, hey, we need phones. Why is it the Dutch are so easy to not be on the screens?
So I will say it's changed a bit since we first came here. It's almost like the phones have made their way. So we are seeing phones now. But that being said, it's I went to the US a few months ago. It's not the same. For one, they're biking, and it's just not popular. Actually, most of the kids, when they're 10, we'll get one for my daughter, Deli, but they get the watches just to make sure, if something happens, the parents know where they are. They can quickly call a number like this. But the watches that they're getting, they don't have apps. They don't have social media. It's just for emergency purposes. That's the most popular thing. There are older kids who have phones. They use WhatsApp, it seems. I've actually asked some of the little teenagers that I've seen. But I've also run into a group of kids in the Netherlands who have gone back to flip phones. And being very curious, Brian and I asked a girl one time who was on a flip phone, did you want that? Are your parents making you have that? And she was like, you guys have ruined smartphones for us. I don't want to be on my phone all the time. And I was like, oh God, I hope we ruin it for everybody. Like, is this going to be not cool anymore? That would be awesome. But also, Europe is very big on mental health. I think more so than other places that I've been in the world. France especially. So in France, they actually just recently passed laws where you have to be a certain age to even get a phone. It's completely off the schools. The Netherlands is interesting because they really believe, and this is part of what I love about the country, that everyone should be able to decide for themselves what's good for you. So that's also why they're open-minded to lots of things that other countries aren't, because they're like, you know what, we're not going to say no. That's their decision. And that goes back, that's a whole other history lesson. But with the phones, I was really hoping they would be like, no, following France, we are going to say no. But actually what they're doing is they're breaking it down to class levels. Where, at a certain age, the parents get together and talk, what are we going to do? Because they do realize it's hard for it to be everyone's individual decision if every single person in the class has one. It makes it difficult. So what they've done so far is they have banned them from school. So they're not allowed to have phones in school, which to me is a no-brainer. And then from there are groups of parents who get together and decide, okay, we're going to do this as a class, and that's coming soon for me. Let's make sure our kids don't have phones. Let's all just get the watches so that they, we can find them on their bikes and they can contact us in case of emergency, but no social media. That's the big thing. And no phones. Yeah. So I wish it was more strict here. It's actually more strict in other European countries, but that just wouldn't be the Dutch way. That's not advice,
I love all of this. And it's food for thought for us, because we've definitely gotten pushback from people, even in our families, saying like, oh, you're not going to be able to keep her off a phone. And it's like, well, we're trying. And I think as a collective, as long as we're banding with other parents, I think there's a strength there. And possibility.
I think it's also making the decision. It's not, oh, you're not going to be able to. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. Now let's figure out how we're going to live without it. And so be it entertainment, be it working with other families. Like you said, it's got to be the classroom thing. And fortunately, there's more resources out there. More people are informed. You are seeing this wave with this generation. Whereas, the teenagers of now, unfortunately, they didn't have it. And you're seeing kids glued to their phones. So,
do you ever think about what your daughter's life would be like if she was in the States? Like what her life would be like, and also how you would change or potentially be different as a mother?
It's really hard for me to imagine. 10 years. I've been told before that, every 7 years you change a bit, and it's reflective of where you live and who you are and who you surround yourself with. I feel so disconnected. When I go back to visit family and friends, it's always nice to see them. But we don't have to get in a car. I've been living like this for too long. It's really different to have to you land in JFK and you are trying to figure out taxis and traffic, and it takes you 3 hours to go visit your brother, for example. And it's worth it because I love seeing these people, but I can't picture it anymore. We've talked about, if something crazy happens and this residency permit that we've worked so hard for and learned this language for and taken tests for goes away, which, by the way, at this point, even if it did, we're kind of like permanent residents. But where would we go? And we don't know. We can't figure it out. I have no idea. I took Delilah to the United States for the first time in a while. She hadn't been. And everything was so fascinating to her. She loved hot dogs, and she was like, these are the best hamburgers I've ever had. I was like, I know. There are certain things that America does really well, but we don't want to eat those every day, she's like, yeah, because this can't be good for you because it's delicious. I'm like, yeah, it's really good. I know. I miss burgers. Hot dogs are great. The guns are different for us. And I get it's just a whole different way of life and different culture. We have friends who go hunting and they have shotguns in their home. But we have to kind of explain that, every country is different and does things different ways. And our country, actually, a lot of people think that guns aren't allowed here. They are. There are just lots of restrictions around them. You have to have a reason to have a gun. You have to go through a course. You can't just get one. And so I think that a lot of people are confused by that. They're like, oh, yeah, guns aren't allowed. No, they are. It's difficult to get one. And it's a huge deal if you have one and you didn't go through that process. But it feels safe, secure, and I'm not worried about her going to school ever. And, I know that this can happen everywhere in the world, but if you live in a different bubble for as long as I have, when you go back to what other people are using, sometimes it just feels crazy in comparison. Once you realize life can be different. So I can't imagine it. I don't know what I would do. I don't know where we would live. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you found your place. I know it's always in the back of your head, like, what if this goes away? But it sounds like you found your place and your people.
Oh, I was just going to say, I also love being in this hub. This city is amazing for traveling from. Most people, when they come from the U.S., stop through Amsterdam. We love being able to host people when they come through. So aside from, it's everything for me. It's the culture, but also just the location of the Netherlands. And Scott, you asked earlier about just feeling more at home here. The English literacy rate is higher in the Netherlands than it is in the U.S. They speak perfect English. You can barely hint an accent. And I've lived in France for 2 years, and I studied French when I was there, and it was really pretty, and I loved it. And I really didn't want to learn Dutch. It was so ugly, and I even cried when I was like, oh, my daughter was sounding so cute, and now she's going to learn this language. But eventually I realized I have to know what's going on in my house. She's having friends over. I don't know what they're saying. I'm like, think about the teenage years. She's going to be able to do anything. I'm not going to know. So I did. I learned this language. And I also didn't like the way they do food here. The Dutch, for them, food is like fuel. It's not an event. It's not the French experience. They eat quickly. They eat not horribly, they eat healthy, but I'm talking here's a whole cucumber and here's some bread with some cheese in it, and that's it. And they're like fuel. And then they move on to the next thing. My point is I don't like everything about this place. There's no one place I've lived in all of these 60 countries that perfect, nailed it. This is it for me. The only things that I have to complain about here, though, things like the weather, aren't really, if that's my only complaint, I feel okay about this. And we have picked up the parts of other cultures that we love in our travels. And we will always be a French family at dinner time, and we will sit at the table and we will enjoy each other's company. We are not Dutch eaters, We'll always get a little crazy like some Spaniards when we want to party. We are not going to sit around like the Dutch with some coffee or one beer and have a polite conversation. This is not who we are. A lot of people think when you go and you live in another land, you really got to like adopt this culture. You don't. You pick up little bits and pieces that you love from everywhere. But this place, for our security, for our daughter, for her education, the education system is incredible and it's free. You don't pay for a private school unless you want your child to go to school in a different language than Dutch. And there's no point in that, because in the Dutch school system, they learn English as well. So it just feels like comfort when I arrive here. And it can be gray and it can be raining and I can be wet, but I still love it.
I love that so much. I mean, you've been truly around the world, and it sounds like you have really found your home. But has there been a place as of recently that you've traveled to and been struck in awe and thought, oh, wow, like that, 20-something part of me that used to just go everywhere and live everywhere, did that get sparked again?
Yes. And it will never stop. It did. I love Thailand. And I've been before, but I still, as a mom, I still have to take about 2 trips a year. One's with my girlfriends, and usually one time's a solo trip. And I went to Thailand a few years ago, and I fell in love. Honestly, with Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist. I thought I might be, but then I read the Dhammapada, and I'm not a Buddhist, but I do really like, taking a piece of their wisdom. But I really felt relaxed and at peace when I was in Thailand. And I had a very unique experience where we were staying kind of outside of Chiang Mai, so not in the city center, at a hotel that wasn't very popular, but there was a temple that we could hike to. And I would hike there every morning, and there was actually a monk there who spoke English, who would take me on garden walks and talk to me about life. He even gave me moss. It was the most spiritual experience I'd felt. It was it was wonderful. And I've actually been back every year since. I really love this place. And I'm a big time planner. So I love planning my own travel. I love planning anything. I love putting things on a calendar. I love making schedules. This is my dream job. Travel planning. My daughter asks me all the time, what is your dream job? I'm like, I'm doing it. And it's not just the travel, it's the planning. But I have planned, when Delilah finishes her, university, or if she goes to university, she might want to go in America, who knows? But once she's moved away from the Hague, I never want to leave this place. But Brian and I have a plan for Round the World Part 2. We're old, we're slow, but we know where we want to go, and we're going to take our time and we're going to relax. And I want a big part of that. Like, we're both kind of jonesing for what we want. I'm like, we're going to spend all of December, January, and February in Thailand. He's like, okay, but then we are going to go to the mountains and we are going to ski. So we have it's not a vision board, it's a spreadsheet, but yeah, I got really lit up by Thailand. I love it. I think it's an amazing place. I love Cambodia, I love Vietnam, but the people there, the food, the relaxed way of life, especially in the mountains. The beaches are awesome, but the mountains have this energy, and yeah, so that's a place. That's a place that really, I'd been before, but I felt reconnecting with it at this age, post-baby, post-manic. I need to see everything. I'm in this calm state. I'm more mindful, so, and now I love it.
I love it. You're talking about how you met this monk who took you on walks. Now, was this just someone who you said hello to and befriended?
Well, the first time I met him, it was on a tour. So the hotel that I was like, we have this tour where you can go up and you can bring offerings to a monk and he'll give you a blessing. And Delilah and Brian don't like waking up before noon, and this was a sunrise tour. So I was like, okay, I'll do this on my. So I did the tour, but I was the only one on the tour. And once it was over, I was like, what do I do now? And he was like, oh, whatever you want. Would you like to go on a walk with me? And I was like, sure. And then he took me on a walk, and it was a beautiful garden, and they had all these rocks on the trees with different little mantras, and he was translating them for me. And then I went and saw him every morning for that we were there. It was probably like this weird American girl will not leave me alone, but He was great. Yeah.
Now, you talk about how you're in your dream job, you're planning travel, you love travel, you're living travel. But I feel like it's such a cool world to like pull back the curtain and dive into, because you plan travel for some ultra high net worth clients and you plan travel around the world to these bucket list destinations.
I mean, I think, is it too much to ask? Like, what's the price budget that the biggest one you've ever planned for?
No, I've done a $1 million trip before.
So just so people know, and we're saying ultra high net worth, they can understand what we're talking about. Some super high
but
levels.
that was exceptional. I would say between 100 and 300,000. And we plan trips also, you know, if someone is going some for a week for 20 grand. It just depends, but our wheelhouse is exclusive events, luxury villas, and these bucket list trips. So, you know, I think that when I started this business, I not was getting made fun of, but there are a lot of people saying like, oh, a travel agent, you know, what is the point? There are lots of booking engines. You can plan things yourself, and you absolutely can. And that's why certain people don't need help with travel, to be honest. It just doesn't, you don't need me. But when you're investing a lot of money in a very special trip and you're going to Africa, you're going to Asia, and you know, you can Google around, you can ask ChatGPT what to do. But are you going to have vetted vendors that make sure that you have an experience that's going to live up to your standards and your budget? And are you going to trust that you're not being ripped off? Part of what I did when I was traveling the world was meeting with people in person, experiencing their tours, making sure that I have connections that I feel strongly about working with. So at first it was just me, but I really stayed laser focused on luxury. It's really smart if you do start this type of travel business. It's hard when you're just trying to plan everything and you're going outside of your wheelhouse and trying to do things that you don't really know much about just to get the business. It's a slow start when you do it the way I did, but I think that it's worth it. And if you can get a few luxury clients, it makes all the difference. And you know, people, if they wanted to do this, if they wanted to start this type of business, they can have lots of ideas about their dreams and their inspiration and how they're going to do it. But all businesses like this come down to one thing: where do you get your leads? How are you going to get your business? And what they end up doing is they end up, you know, first trying to get their friends, like, I can plan your travel, and then maybe some past colleagues. It becomes a word of mouth situation. Where we did well, because that is how I started also, is we were able to really focus on a few specific brands. So we have the Elite Travel Network now. We have Elite St. Bart's, Elite Balearics, which is mostly Ibiza, but Mallorca, Menorca too, and then Elite Asia and Elite Africa. And within these kind of spheres, we have microsites. And for example, our St. Bart's microsites, Elite St. Barth has a very high ranking in Google. So if you're searching for St. Bart's Villa, there's a chance that our website is there. That's where we get our leads. And I think that a lot of people have the misconception that you can start a business like this. You can start travel agencies, which, by the way, you can't just start a travel agency. You have to go under either a host agency, or you have to do a lot of work on the certification process, which is what I decided to do. I wanted it to be my baby. I didn't want to work for a host agency. So we went through the 2-year certification process to be able to do this. And, you know, the way they work is you get commission off of experiences and trips that you book clients. So you're not having to raise the price on them. You don't necessarily have to charge a planning fee. That's popular with kind of low travel, but usually once you hit a high-end luxury, it's not something that's necessary. But it doesn't always work as a full-time lucrative position unless you figure out a way to get a stream of leads, because eventually your family and your friends are going to get annoyed with you contacting them. It's going to be awkward and things go a little weird on a trip, and oh my gosh, my mom's friend's going to be, you know, it doesn't always work this way. So I don't want to give this misconception that you can just go start a blog, travel the world, and then you are going to have an agency. Business is going to be gravy, and you're going to be able to travel yourself. I do travel myself from time to time, but most of my time is spent on my computer and on the phone, in itineraries, calling people all over the world to make sure things go well, doing checks a week before they go to make sure everything's in place, being on call while traveling. We have a very small team of travel planners. We have people who help us with marketing and our accounting. So the business has grown. But most of what we have are these solid connections around the world of trusted vendors, trusted tour guides, trusted drivers that we have vetted personally. And that's kind of where my start was helpful.
I love listening to you light up about travel, because it's just, even after all these years, it still lights you up. And you talk about luxury.
Brian's so tired of it. He's done, but Delhi's now my travel. She's just starting and she wants to go everywhere with me.
I love it. The next gen. When you talk about luxury, I mean, there's different levels and ways you can think about it. And of course, many people think it's just what you're paying. But I know that you see luxury as something different. I mean, tell me what luxury means to you. Is it access? Is it transformation? Is it experiential? Like, tell me about the luxury mindset.
Well, for me, while we will plan luxury trips that are my daughter is home from football now and she's ringing the door, and just a note that they might be coming in. But anyways, I see luxury as more than just like the Four Seasons, very standard hotel brands that people think of when they think of luxury. To me, it should be more unique. It should be more boutique. It's not just going to Africa and staying at a luxury resort, a Landolozi or a Singita. It's the experiences that surround that. It is, maybe going out and having a camping night out in the middle of with a big machete, for example. It's about integrating the culture as well with the experience as much as possible. Of course, there's a level of comfort that has to remain. For example, there was a huge trip, luxury clients who came to Amsterdam. And we really tried, each day of their trip had a different theme. Day one was on the water. Day two was Dutch garden. Day three was classic Dutch. On the classic Dutch day, we rented out this beautiful mansion in Amsterdam, just this classic Dutch house. And we talked about the fusion of cultures and the Indonesian culture and how strong it is. Indonesian dancers. We had a Michelin chef cater the meal. It's a whole event, and it starts from the moment you wake up and you receive a note on your door with a surprise about what you're doing today. And then the evening at your turn down, you have a very special gift on your pillow that brings the whole day full circle. So to me, it is less about how much you spend on the hotel and more about the whole experience surrounding this adventure.
Wow. I'm ready to go. I'm excited for this trip that we haven't planned and aren't going on.
All right. I planned it already.
Well, I will say every time we get together, either you or Colette, there will be some type of emailed itinerary, either text message or whatever, of like what we're doing when we're even just casually hanging out. Here's a list of things we can do. Here's the options. If the weather's bad, we can go here or there.
He speaks my love language.
Yes. I mean, typically, like, I'm the one that puts together itineraries when we're traveling. But whenever we go to visit Andrea, I'm just like, yep, it's in your hands. Like, this is your wheelhouse. This is your world.
I try to let go sometimes and let other people plan, but honest, it stresses me out a bit.
You know what I've loved as well is that there's just this hidden gems. I think when people visit the Netherlands, they always go to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam's amazing. It's one of my favorite cities. But your city is incredible. And the people that are in that city and the food the restaurants you've taken me to, like Nona that we went to.
Yeah.
The Sicilian restaurant. I mean, It's wonderful. It's like its own little world there.
It is. And I have a theory because I found, we lived in Amsterdam for a year and a half before we moved to The Hague and decided to settle here. And I felt like I'd found this mini Amsterdam without tourists, with a big forest and a beach. So I was like, this is it. This is amazing. But I really found the food to be exceptional. Every restaurant on my street is so good. And The Hague is very international. You know, the International Criminal Court is here. There's a lot of people who are living here for a period of time or end up staying here permanently. And that's why the food is so good. You go to the Italian place and it's the Italians who are making the pizza, and the French place, it's the French chef, you know? So we really feel like we found this incredible spot where, even though the Dutch cuisine is not my favorite, it's so international that we can eat around the world just within a few blocks of where we live. For us, that's perfect. We will fly somewhere for pasta, but you know, we found pasta here we like too.
Very much so.
I'm curious about some of the, these amazing events that you organize and all these connections that you have, because I know, what are some of the prestigious, hard to access things that you've been able to, get your foot in the door, and how were you able to make those connections over the years?
So yes, we do exclusive events like Paris Fashion Week, Cannes Film Festival, Monaco Grand Prix. Most of these, to be honest, it's not like they're easy, but you could figure out how to go to the Monaco Grand Prix without contacting me. Fashion Week is difficult. In New York, it's easy to go in other places. In Paris, they really don't care about who you are, or how much money you are, or if you're an influencer. If you're not in the fashion industry, you're not going to be on a list. You're not going to get a ticket. It's not something you can pay for. You have to be invited. And they're very strict and they're very French and they don't care about you. So with that, it took a lot of networking. I networked a lot when I was living in Paris. I made connections. Those connections have shifted and settled in a place where we have a really solid offering. We actually sell it mostly through companies that do auctions in the US. So a lot of auctions in the US, it'll be like, do you want to go to Paris Fashion Week? Well, bidding will start here. So that's usually the type of clients we get, or kind of our regular travelers who, for a special occasion, a girls' weekend, they want to go experience Fashion Week. So that was all networking. That was me living in Paris. In the travel world, there's something called DMC, these direct management companies. A lot of travel agencies work with them when they want someone specializing in an area. We basically act as our own DMC for certain locations like Paris and Amsterdam, because we have the resources and the team there that we need. And then the film festival, same situation. It was networking. It's actually kind of a group that overlaps a lot, but have an opportunity, and it's always last minute, because again, this is something you're invited to. It's not something you can pay for and get a space, but we can always get people on the red carpet if they want to go see, a grand opening of a film, the parties as well. And it's just about being there and networking and asking who can help with this, and not just developing that trusted connection, but showing them that you have something to bring them as well. So, you have a client that okay, you're serious. Now we trust each other. Let's do business together. You have to, though, you really have to be good at reading other cultures, being cognizant of what they are comfortable with you asking, comfortable with you selling, the type of clients that you're bringing. We have even had to go as far as to set up styling sessions before Fashion Week. And, a lot of American clients, they don't know what to wear to a fashion show. And so they welcome it. It's not like I'm saying, no, we have to dress you. No, they are like, what do I do? And it's actually helpful for us as well, because they are very strict at these shows. Like you come in without a manicure, it might be like, who are you? Go out. Well, no. So it's a whole experience, but it's really fun. The parties are really fun. They're very French. People are swinging their napkins on the tables. You see celebrities. It's usually kind of one of these bucket list things that somebody wants to do at least once.
I don't know why, but in our time of life, I just think of it's like the adult version of the Bippity Boppity Boutique in Disney. Do you know what that is?
I don't, but I can imagine that you go step like a princess as a little girl.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely no.
It's the adult version.
It's the adult
It
version.
is a little
And
bit
it's
like
necessary. Because I mean, I've been to Canada and I've been on the side where I was studying abroad and I didn't have access to any of these parties. And we were thinking, oh, okay, we would just show up and we could get in, but it was really about who you know. And that is so necessary, especially across France and these special events.
Absolutely. And when I have someone who's interested in a fashion show or interested in the film festival, before I can even promise a ticket, I have to send in their profile. Here is who this is. Here's their business. It's a review process. So it's not something that anyone can just do. It's difficult.
Well, now tell me where everyone can find you if they want to plan one of these amazing vacations with you. Where can they find you?
Of course. Well, our website is either elitetravelarrangements.com or etaescape.com. We are on Instagram at etaescape.com. To be honest, we are not super active on social media on a regular basis. We kind of use it as a catalog for the type of experiences that we use. So every now and then we do share something new, and many of our clients get inspiration from this. But that's where I can be found, in the Netherlands, in The Hague. If you want to come visit, I'll show you around.
You're the best.
Well, this has been so much fun. Always when we talk, I get so much energy. And the one thing that I loved is when you talked about how we party like Spaniards. I feel like there's this natural resistance living in the suburbs where there's, obviously some people drink, some people don't. And you're kind of, in this kid age, it's like, how loose can we be? And now I'm just going to say, hey, I'm partying like a Spaniard. Like, would you like a cocktail? Like, we're not Americans. We're taking this piece of the culture. So yes, that's the one.
Exactly. You take that piece with you. But I do have to say the Dutch, they party well. They do party well. They are very open-minded, and it's part of what I love the place. So you never feel living here or, in many of the places of the world that I really feel at home, you never feel old. It's like any age. You can do anything. I don't feel old at 40. I feel very young. I feel like I have so much more to experience, and I feel more alive at this age than I ever have. So,
well, thank you. On that note, thank you very much, Trey.
Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're learning from and or enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. These are great free ways to support this podcast. Also, please subscribe to this podcast on both Spotify and Apple. On both of those platforms, you can leave us up to a 5-star review, which would help us out greatly. Please also check out the sponsors mentioned in today's episode. That's the best way to support this show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please put those in the comment sections in YouTube. And yes, we do read all the comments.